Happy Friday. This is the Conservative Cat Show. I so do appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, subscribe, tell a friend to subscribe today to the channel. We've got to talk about a few things this morning. A couple of things. Tim Walz, the investigations over the fraud there in Minnesota. This scandal is really heating up. So we're going to get to that, and Ilhan Omar, her connections to the Minnesota fraudsters who stole hundreds of millions in taxpayer cash in this welfare racket. So we're going to get to that, and then I want to get to a story I didn't get to yesterday. It was the USPS, the United States Postal Service. They are constantly on their website. It's plastered all over there. They say we're self-funded. It's kind of like NPR, where they're like, yeah, we're listener funded, or we're publicly funded, or whatever, funded by viewers like you. And they actually spend billions in your tax dollars. They actually received, I think in 2022, between 2020 to 2022, I think it was a total of $120 billion. And they say, well, that's not for day-to-day operations. That's because we didn't, pay off our pension debt. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's still taxpayer cash, and the private sector doesn't get $120 billion just plopped into their lap. So they want to spend billions now of your tax dollars on electric trucks, like mail carrier trucks. They want to transition their fleet to electric. And this is all part of the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm going to dig into it here. Again, the show is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Be sure to subscribe. Powered by PatriotPumpEnergy.com. Patriot Pump, this is our premium pre-workout. Promo code Conservative Cat. Link is in the description for you. If you need to get a bottle today, if you're out, our fruit punch flavor is available. All right, things are heating up for Mr. Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor. He's politically dead after not winning with Kamala Harris on the ticket in 2024. Politically dead. That's why I think this story sort of came to light. I think this is a chance in Minnesota, politics is very much like Illinois politics. A Minnesota Republican is not truly a Republican. I now live down south. I can say that, a Republican is kind of a Republican here down south. An Illinois Democrat an Illinois Republican is like a Democrat here, okay, in South Carolina. Okay, so an Illinois Republican is pretty much a Democrat. Anywhere else, if you were to go down south, they're not very conservative. They vote for things that are crazy all the time. Every single Republican in the state house. And I just wake up in the morning and I think about this and I'm like, what the hell is going on in that state? You've got every single Republican voting for Narcan in the state house, voting for Narcan to be administered in public libraries. Tell me how that makes sense. Okay, little Susie, we're gonna go. My little daughter, we're gonna go take her to go read some Magic Tree House books at the public library. Oh, look at over there. There's somebody overdosing on opioids, on heroin. They came into the library to get their dose of Narcan. Yeah, that just sounds Republican and conservative to me. Making our public spaces, our taxpayer-funded spaces, into little Narcan safe havens. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I don't know. Every Republican voted for it. I'm still shocked by that. But anyway, Minnesota is much like Illinois in the sense that you've got Republicans who are really rhinos. They're not really like true conservatives. A lot of Republicans have entered the race. I hope that the MyPillow guy, Mike Lindell, I hope that he enters the race. We talked about that yesterday. He launched a campaign finance. He opened up an account called Mike Lindell for governor. So I'd imagine he's going to be entering the race. His decision comes on December 11th officially. He told a media outlet down there that he wasn't 100% if he was going to run or not. things are heating up down there. I think that there's some weak-kneed Republicans who see that Governor Tim Walz is dead politically and they're wanting to pounce. They're not going to like Mike Lindell getting into the mix of things because he is a true conservative. And they're not going to get the backing of President Donald Trump if Mike Lindell is in the race. All of these crowded Republicans in that race, one of them being the House Speaker in Minnesota, they're not going to get that endorsement from President Donald Trump to get them across the finish line likely. Because Mike Lindell is a friend of Donald Trump, we know this. He's going to get that endorsement, and he's probably going to be the GOP nominee if he enters. But they see the writing on the wall, the Minnesota Republicans, and they pounced. But let's talk about the scandal here because it's gone viral nationally. The reason for that is because Tim Walz is dead. They want somebody else in there, and they needed to ensure that Tim Walz, and that's why the New York Times, I was shocked that the New York Times had published this, and this kind of stuff goes on in every single state nationwide. This sort of fraud, this sort of funneling taxpayer dollars to nonprofits, and then the people in the nonprofits who are the executive directors, take that money and spend it on very lavish lifestyles. And that's what happened here. So the scope of the scandal is much broader than what I had thought, though. I thought that it was, okay, yeah, like nonprofit people are pocketing taxpayer cash and they're friends of the politicians, but it looks like the investigations are going into overdrive here, and they are looking to take Tim Walz down. So the investigations are looking into Tim Walz himself. So a powerful U.S. House committee and the Department of Treasury, the Treasury Department, they launched investigations into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and his involvement in the massive fraud. I didn't think that it was going to go that deep, but it did. So they're looking into his involvement in the massive fraud scheme that involved Somali immigrants. So Somali immigrants, being a part of this nonprofit, and we're going to look at one specific example, and the people who are involved in that nonprofit have connections to Ilhan. We're going to get to that here in about 3 minutes. But the scheme involves Somali immigrants, and they took more than $1 billion from taxpayers, and this was revealed early this week. The House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, a Republican from Kentucky, told the Post that his panel, his oversight committee, is going to conduct a thorough investigation into Governor Tim Walz and his failure to safeguard those tax dollars. So Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was warned about the massive fraud from whistleblowers. Okay, so this is one nonprofit that we're looking at. The investigation, I'm sure, is going to reveal multiple nonprofits, but there was one that was pandemic related, and it was a food aid program during the pandemic for children. Okay, so hungry children. And he was warned, I guess, by whistleblowers that there was fraud happening where taxpayer money was being funneled into this nonprofit, and then it was being siphoned off by bad actors, specifically Somali immigrants. And he failed to act when those warnings were issued. So whistleblowers raised concern, yet they faced retaliation, according to Comer. That's what James Comer says. A whistleblower claimed that, or a whistleblower who represents hundreds of Minnesota Department of Human Services employees, created kind of a fuss and went viral. They put it out on their X account. I covered that a couple of days ago. The DHSE, the Department of Human Services employees, put it out on X. And they said that Tim Walz was 100% responsible. They blasted this guy. They said that the whistleblowers were retaliated against. They said that they were monitored. They were threatened. They were repressed. They also stated on X, these DHSE or the Department of Human Services employees, they also stated that they even informed Kamala Harris and the DNC that Tim Walz was ignoring them. But Kamala Harris and the DNC in 2024 ignored them and ignored their cries and warnings about the fraud. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced that the Treasury is going to be investigating allegations that under the mismanagement of the Biden administration, Governor Tim Walz and hardworking Minnesota tax dollars may have been diverted to a terrorist organization group. So that as well, called Al-Shabaab. So not only were these people like living lavish lifestyles in these nonprofits, these executive directors, and I'm going to get to two of them with connections to Ilhan here in just a second. But not only that, they weren't living just lavish lifestyles. Those people in that nonprofit were funneling that money back to a terrorist organization, allegedly. That's being investigated. And, this was under the mismanagement of Joe Biden. Joe Biden should have known that this was happening under his nose in his country. What the hell do we have the FBI for, all these anti-terrorism task force for? How did they not know that our U.S. tax dollars were going to a terrorist organization? Okay, so the ploy here, according to prosecutors, involved funneling money to state social services, their coffers, these programs, including the Department of Human Services that have all of these various programs underneath them, and the Department of Education. So one of them being the Feeding Our Future nonprofit. And there were other organizations that were designed to feed hungry children during the pandemic. And that money was funneled to the agency, to the nonprofit. And then the nonprofit was not actually feeding children, but rather paying themselves, spending it on themselves, and they were sending it overseas to a terrorist group called Al-Shabaab, allegedly. So it was a plot. They used the funds, spent the funds on lavish lifestyles like brand new fancy cars, estate holdings as far away as Turkey and Kenya. Between April of 2020 and January of 2022, prosecutors said the nonprofit workers did. They took that money. And this stuff happens all of the time. Like, it's so blatant. In Illinois, I mean, come on, folks. There was the same thing. I think it was, I can't remember the name. There's all kinds of nonprofit organizations in Chicago that are designed to end homelessness and eradicate hunger. Yeah. And then you look at their 501c3, their EIN, they're all assigned an employment identification number, and then you plug that in, and then you look at their tax filings, and then you find out what they're compensated, the executive directors of these nonprofits. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time when I'm looking this up, what the hell? Somebody who is in charge of a nonprofit organization designed to help the needy is collecting a $300,000 salary. I don't know about you, but that's absurd, and kind of defeats the purpose. So Tim Walz, he appeared on Meet the Press over the weekend, and I didn't get to this week, but I wanted to play it here. He claimed that he claimed responsibility for putting people in jail. He deflected from the fraud question, and he bizarrely blamed Donald Trump. He deflected the fraud question to Donald Trump, and he said it wasn't Somalians. It wasn't only Somalians. Well, maybe not only Somalians, but I'm going to give you two Somalians right now who are involved, Somali immigrants who have connections with Ilhan, who were involved, and they stole hundreds of millions of dollars. How many folks were involved? If Tim Walz is saying, not all of them were Somalis. Well, who was involved? It seems like you know who's involved if you're so like hell bent on saying it wasn't Somalis. Who was it, and how many folks were actually involved there, Tim? And then he says in this MSNBC video that there's a difference between fraud and corruption. What? I kind of, not really. So President Donald Trump, he gets the blame. He takes responsibility and he says that I'm, putting people in jail over this, yada, yada, yada. Walz also accused of Trump of being unwell. So when he was asked about the fraud, he went right away to Trump being unwell, being old, and he demanded the release of his MRI. To be quite frank with you, I don't give a hoot about Donald Trump's. Like, I want him to be physically healthy, and I pray for him to be physically healthy. I pray for our president. I pray for all of our government leaders. But as long as things are getting done, and they are, I really don't care about his MRI. I don't care what it shows, what it comes back. I don't really care. And it takes some nerve, okay, from Tim Walz. He's a bold guy, a liar. He lied about his time in service. Stolen valor. Tim Walz, his wife sat there outside their window and smelled the burning rubber as their city burned down. They're ballsy family. But it takes some nerve to take all those questions about the fraud scandal and then swirl them around and deflect and talk about Donald Trump being unwell and something about his MRI. I'm just going to let you take a listen to it. Here we go.
Well, speaking of the Somali community, President Trump is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top. Lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to live. People are taking advantage of that. They're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better. But that's Donald Trump. Deflect, demonize, come up with no solutions. He's not going to help fix anything on fraud. My God, there's a big difference between fraud and corruption is something he knows about.
Oh, boy. That's Tim Walz, the governor there. Deport them all. Yes. Good morning. Cat and Chat. Islamic money doing its job. Yeah. Funding terrorism. It's not even Islamic money. It's our money. And they are taking our money, stealing our money, and they are shipping it to their cousin marriage, cannibal friends over in Somalia. Okay. I think yesterday in the show, I talked a little bit about cousin marriage and how it's like at like 59% over there, a 59% cousin marriage rate in Somalia. Not exactly a great place to visit. I have no desire to go visit that country in the on the African continent. I've got no desire at all. But yeah, they're shipping money back to those people who like to kill people, and specifically women, for having boyfriends. Okay, so this has been going on for some time, the corruption, and it's a lot to unpack. But thankfully, finally, this has gotten some national attention, and my hope is that more of this kind of microscope, looking under the microscope, national attention. I hope that this happens in many other states, because every state is doing this. It just so happens that there's some political undertones here that has allowed this to get national attention. Tim Walz is politically dead. They are trying to oust him, the Republican Party there. And I'm not exactly fond of the Minnesota Republican Party, much like I'm not fond of the Illinois Republican Party. Like Minnesota, Illinois Republicans, they are like Southern Democrats. Okay, they are not really Republicans. So hopefully everyone involved is held accountable here in Minnesota. And I hope that it stirs up things in other states, and other states are nail biting, or, maybe they start correcting some of their behavior amidst this scandal. So I want to get to Ilhan Omar. Speaking of cousin marriages, I'm just kidding, or brother, familial marriages. No, it's a fact. Ilhan married her brother. So she has been accused of not direct involvement, but indirect involvement surrounding this welfare fraud. Okay, this scandal in Minnesota. Now, the scammers who were in these nonprofits, like, what was it? The Feeding Our Friends, or whatever that nonprofit was called, Feeding Our Future. I don't know. All these nonprofits have really gay names. I think they're funny. So all these scammers were mostly Somalian or of Somali descent, and they ripped off the government by skimming as much as $1 billion from nutrition programs like Feeding Our Future. And she's certainly familiar. I'm not going to come out here and say she has direct involvement, and there definitely needs to be some investigations into Ilhan here, because how involved was she? She seemed to have known these people well. So the scammers, the Somali scammers, she knows them quite well. Omar, she has strong relationships with at least two of these fraudsters, two scammers in the fraud saga. So it's kind of funny. Both their last names are Saeed. So I'll get to the first Saeed. Salim Ahmed Saeed. He is the owner of what's called the Safari Restaurant. And apparently Ilhan Omar held her 2018 campaign party there, victory party there. Okay. And he was convicted. Salim Saeed. Kind of fun to say. Saeed. He was convicted in March 2025 on 21 counts of wire fraud, federal programs, bribery, money laundering, and he allegedly pocketed $5 million from the scheme, the funneling the money through the Feeding Our Future scheme, and he took that money and enriched himself, okay, for his own enrichment, rather than what that money's for is a child nutrition program. Okay, so he is facing decades in prison now, and he is one of 70 defendants charged in this sweeping case. So 45 convictions. There have been 45 convictions so far of the 70 defendants. So another one of the thieves that I want to talk about in this whole scheme is another Somalian. He is a Democrat activist. His name is Jihad Hashi Saeed. They're both named Saeed. A different Saeed, a campaign official, actually, of Ilhan Omar's. He pleaded guilty in August of 2025 to running a fake food site. Okay. The fake food site was called Advanced Youth Athletic Development. Okay. And he claimed to have been serving 5,000 meals a day, but yet he pocketed $3.2 million in taxpayer cash out of this food program. So you see what goes on. The nonprofit Feeding Our Future, they funnel that money to various groups. One of the groups being this Advanced Youth Athletic Development, but it's not real. It's fake. And Saeed, Hashi Saeed, worked on the Ilhan Omar campaign in 2018 and in 2020. He was an enforcer. That was his title on the campaign. And him being an enforcer, what his job was to mobilize voters. Okay, aggressive voter mobilization is what his job was in the Somalian community. So he was to get the Somali vote out. And that is according to alphanews.org resource. I like to provide my resources. Now, this is a picture of Ilhan and Guhad Hashi Saeed. Take a look. They look like they're friends, huh? Me and my state representative, Ilhan Omar, at a family reunion lunch today. Like I said, all the Somalians are kind of related to each other. I would not be shocked if they're related. But kind of. Okay. So the Somalian community, they're all sort of, like I said, over in Somalia, the cousin marriage rate. So they don't marry outside of their family. They marry their extended family. So they marry each other's cousins. That's a cultural thing. And I wouldn't doubt if it's brought over here. And a lot of these people have the same last names. I wouldn't be shocked if somehow they're related. Ilhan. I don't know. He said we're at a family reunion lunch today. Okay, so are you guys family? I wouldn't be shocked to find that out. But Hashi reportedly ran the site under a name, a website, and it was like the Youth Athletic Development, but it was all fake. Okay, and he said that he was serving 5,000 meals to youth every day. 5,000 meals per day. And he took an estimated $3.2 million out of that food program designed to help hungry children. And, over 4 dozen people have now been convicted in connection with this scam. Omar, she hasn't been formally accused of, knowing or having a part in this. And she's innocent until proven guilty. I want to be clear about that. But as the saying goes, you are known by the company you keep. Okay. And she certainly seems to be buddies, very familiar with big time criminals. I mean, frauding the government of $3.2 million. That's not just petty crime. That's not going in and stealing a loaf of bread, folks. That is a hard, big-time criminal. And as the saying goes, show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are. So Ilhan should definitely be investigated. What did she know about these 2 men? What did she know about these 2 big-time criminals? The Somali community in Minnesota is estimated at 108,000. And everybody knows how close-knit the Somalis are. They are bound together by numerous family ties. And I have explained to you that culturally, cousin marriage is a thing over in Somalia. Now, Bill Gahn, he is a policy fellow at the Center of the American Experiment. And he's alleging that Omar would know many of these people who are involved in this scam, taking the money from Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit organization. He says, quote, Representative Omar knew who these people were. People she personally knew were making tens of millions of dollars in this program. And they were spending it on lavish cars. I don't believe these 2 men were convicted of sending it to a terrorist organization. That wasn't on their rap sheet there. But she had been inside the restaurant. Remember the first Somali immigrant I told you about, the first Saeed? She was inside that facility, the Safari restaurant, on numerous occasions. And, I don't know. You put 2 and 2 together. Like, either she was naive or she didn't care. You know, did they tell her and she just looked the other way? How close were these two people? These three individuals, she with the first Saeed, she with the second Saeed. How close are they? What did they tell her? I hope investigations ramp up, and I hope that more prosecutions are to come as authorities try to untangle this web of treachery, because that's what it is. Whether Omar was directly involved or not, or had direct knowledge that these two men, Somali men, were doing this, whether she had direct knowledge that they were involved or not, she is woefully inept. Like, if she didn't have direct knowledge, if Tim Walz, there's no proof that he overtly tried to silence whistleblowers and cover this all up. What this all proves at the end of the day is that they're inept, and that they're not capable of representing the people or protecting their constituency, and they're not capable of protecting the American people or the American taxpayer dollars. So that's where I'm at with it. Explosive stuff, folks, this morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. I am going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about the United States Postal Service. Every year around this time, I get real peeved off at the USPS, and it's because I go and get my Christmas stamps, because I can't mail a letter to people or mail my Christmas cards out to people without a stamp, because government. I can't. Although they charge me like an arm and a leg, like for 50 stamps, it's like $50. Like it's insane. It's insanity. But I go and I get my stamp, and they have these like Kwanzaa stamps every year, and it really pisses me off. And then I think about how much money that they make, the USPS, in the form of, fees, stamps, service fees, the boxes they charge you. I think about all of that, and then I think about all the taxpayer cash that they've gotten over the course of just last 5 years, over $120 billion, to bail them out of their pension obligations, because they're not running the USPS the way they should be. They're running it inefficiently. Why? Because it's government. No other private sector company, Amazon, FedEx, no other company gets $120 bailout. Just saying. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be back talking about the USPS, and they now want to take taxpayer dollars to electrify their fleet. Okay, and I'm not opposed to electrifying the fleet. Amazon does it. They do it they did a deal with Rivian or whatever. I don't like electric cars. I think that they don't work. You drive them, and really the USPS is supposed to serve rural communities, which is kind of a terrible combination. Rural communities and electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, they can only go so far on a charge, and they need to be charged up again. And we just don't have the infrastructure in these rural communities to charge up electric vehicles. So, yeah, I don't think it makes any sense to electrify their fleet, specifically the USPS. I know Amazon has done it. I don't think it really makes much sense for anybody to purchase an electric vehicle personally, or if it's a contract with a major company, Amazon. But Amazon has the money to piss away. Right. So if the cars break down because it's cold, the vans break down because it's cold, the maintenance is really expensive, Amazon can eat that cost, whatever. It's on them. What I don't like is the government spending taxpayer money on things that don't work. So we're going to be back with that. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors. Men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you being here. Before we move on from the Ilhan Omar thing, like I said, she's connected to 2 Somali fraudsters. Okay. She short-circuited here on CNN. I just found this clip. Ilhan, she got asked about the taxpayer-funded fraud in Minnesota, and she short-circuited on CNN. I'm going to share the clip here with you. Here we go.
Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
Can you?
Spoken like a true lib. Okay. She really should have thought a little harder before she answered there. I thought she might have been prepared for an interview when asked about this, especially considering her connections to those Somali immigrants who are convicted now of fraud. But she didn't seem very prepared. It was a pathetic response. After the Congresswoman's response, Tapper criticized President Donald Trump for making, quote, shockingly bigoted comments about not only Ilhan Omar, but the entire Somali community in Minnesota while speaking to reporters in the Oval on Wednesday. It wasn't shockingly bigoted. I told you what Donald Trump said yesterday, or said on Wednesday in the Oval. What he said was, I don't know why we're taking Somalians or people from shithole countries, excuse my language. He says, I don't know why we're doing that. People from Haiti, and that's not bigoted. That's going after the country. Okay, the country is so inept and nasty. I don't know why we'd be taking anybody from those countries because they are not good people. Who are coming out of those countries. They're not benefiting America in any kind of way. And he wasn't going after the people that come from those countries. It's really how the countries are run, which is why the people are the way they are. So, for example, Somali culture, cousin marriages, we don't really like that. Why? Here in America, our culture is you don't marry your cousin for obvious reasons. That's, biologically yields poor results. And, I just don't think it was bigoted at all. I think it was just factual that, hey, why are we taking people from these countries who don't share our culture or values? Okay, they're not adding any, they don't want to be American. They want to come here and change America into their shithole country, or bring their shithole country here to America. Okay. And, Ilhan Omar has said some shockingly bigoted things about President Donald Trump over the years, has told outright lies. This was a classic leftist response, similar to Tim Walz' response over the fraud. Classic leftist response here. They point the finger at somebody else and they blame everyone else for exactly what they're doing. Okay, but what else is new? Quote from Fox News, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. Not factual. She should be thrown the hell out of our country. This is what President Donald Trump says, quoted in Fox News. And most of those people have destroyed Minnesota. She should not be, and her friend shouldn't be allowed, frankly. They shouldn't even be allowed to be Congress people, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be Congress people because they don't represent the interests of our country. Yeah, and I just told you her connections to these scammers. Okay, she's got ties, connections to these scammers. I'm not saying she's directly involved in the fraud, but she's indirectly involved in that she has buddies who frauded the taxpayers of Minnesota to the tune of millions of dollars. Just two of them. Okay, so far that we know of. So I think most people hearing this from President Donald Trump agree with his comments. I'm not here to tell you, why, like, Donald Trump says, incredible things all of the time. But this was not bigoted. Ilhan Omar married her brother. Fact. She should be thrown out of our country because she doesn't represent the interests of our country, and she doesn't share the values or the culture of this country, and she doesn't want to be an American. She wants to be in America, cause all kinds of trouble. Here's what Omar said. She says, I'm shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he's trying to scapegoat and deflect from actual failures that he has himself. I don't know about you, but it's the Biden administration who failed the people of Minnesota because they didn't catch the fraud that was going on to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars, millions of dollars. But you've got Ilhan Omar here saying, quote, we know that this administration has not fulfilled the majority of promises that they've made. Not true. Whether it's bringing cost downs, not true. Whether it's the tariffs, not true, that are decimating business in the United States, whether it's possible war crimes, again, not true, that his defense secretary is committing. Cost of NPR, local NPR in Bloomington, hilarious. They published this data and they were like, milk hasn't even really gone down all that much under the Trump administration. And then they show a graph. They proceed to show a graph where milk is down by 50 cents. Eggs are down at least by $3. Gas is down by at least $2 to $3. Costs are coming down. Okay, number one. Number two, the tariffs are working. In fact, they're working so much that Donald Trump is saying, hey, in 4 years' time, we might not have an income tax anymore. Think about that. Not having income tax, getting to take home your entire paycheck. They tax you when you buy things. They tax you when you die. They tax you all the time. They tax you when you drive, the gasoline you put in the car, the tobacco you put in your pipe. They're taxing you on paint now in Illinois. If you go buy paint at Sherwin-Williams, I think that's the name of the paint store, Sherwin-Williams. I don't know. I can't remember the name of that store to save my life. But if you go buy a can of paint, it's going to cost you more. Why? Because they want to throw that towards paint recycling, the Democrats in Illinois. But you're taxed into oblivion. Property taxes. You don't even own the property that you spent, years paying off. A mortgage, 30-year mortgage. You spent years paying it off. It's not even yours because if you skip a property tax payment, they're going to take it from you. Okay, so to have income tax, like the tariffs are working so much to where they're talking about now in 4 years' time removing the income tax. Like we used to have, we had consumer taxes and tariffs back at the founding, and that was Alexander Hamilton's model. He was all about tariffs and consumer-based taxes like a sales tax, and taxing certain goods higher than others, like say, we tax tobacco higher than, a bag of rice or something at the store. Okay. So he was all about that, and not taxing income, not taxing property taxes, not taxing gas taxes. Okay. They'd be rolling around. They're probably rolling around in their graves right now, looking at how much taxation there is now. The founding fathers, again, people like Ilhan Omar have no real arguments or substance to offer. Like, she resorted to the attacks, and she called President Donald Trump bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic. He wasn't really attacking the people. He was just stating the facts that, hey, she married her brother. She should be thrown out of our country because she doesn't represent the interests of this country. And he was saying that a lot of the Somalian people have destroyed Minnesota, as evident by the 2 Somali immigrants who she has ties with. They've destroyed Minnesota in that they stole, one of them stole 3.2, the other one stole $5 million from the Minnesota taxpayer. So, yeah, Donald Trump isn't lying. They are destroying Minnesota. They're doing loud calls to prayer. Actually, right there in Minnesota, there was a public meeting, and the constituents there were very upset about loud calls to prayer at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. And they were wanting the local council to do something about the loud calls to prayer. There were Somalian men riding on horses and blocking traffic in Minnesota. Yeah, they're destroying the state with their cultural practices and their cousin marriages. Okay. So she resorts to ad hominem attacks and things like xenophobia, Islamophobia, and racist rhetoric. Trump has never said anything really about race. He has said those people, it's not about their race, it's about the culture that they bring and the lawlessness really that they bring, because our laws are derived from our culture is derived from our religion. This is a Christian nation. Okay. And they aren't conforming, or they aren't assimilating or respecting our culture, our laws, all derived from the Christian Bible. They're forcing their culture on America. And that is not xenophobic to say that. It's not Islamophobic to hold people accountable. Also, when they commit massive fraud and send money, taxpayer money, to terrorist organizations who, I don't know, drive planes into our towers. Okay. As previously mentioned, these people won't hesitate to point a finger and blame someone for their own insecurities. And she claims that Trump is trying to use this to scapegoat and deflect from the failures of his administration or the failures he has himself. That could not be a better representation of herself if she had tried. She is a finger pointer, and she's got 3 fingers pointing right back at her. And she is deflecting. Okay, so she's accusing Donald Trump of exactly what she's actually doing. There have been tremendous success. Do I like everything the Trump administration is doing? No, I have concerns about the Venezuela regime change. I have concerns about the AI tax breaks. I have concerns about the H-1B visas and the tech bros, the Elon Musk, the Mark Zuckerbergs. I've got concerns there. So I'm not saying he's like 100. This is 100% success, the presidency, but costs are down. You know, everything that she brought up, costs, tariffs, all working. With the war crimes, come on now. Like I said, 1798 Aliens Enemies Act. He via executive order designated TDA, which is a Venezuelan gang, as enemies of the state, as enemies of the nation, and that allows him to conduct strikes on these drug boats coming into the United States, as long as they're aware, or as long as we know, intelligence shows that they are drug boats and that they are TDA members. Okay, so I do want to share one more clip. This is talking about the American people. The American people believe that President Donald Trump actually has delivered on his promises. Things like school choice, eradicating wokeness on college campuses. The list goes on. There's a lot of things to be grateful for in this administration. Do I like everything? Absolutely not. But take a listen.
Donald Trump is who the voters thought he was. What are we talking about here? Well, is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 52%. The majority of Americans say that Donald Trump is doing what he promised, compared to 48% who said no. So what essentially is going on here is the voters expected all of this from Donald Trump. The majority did. And that is why his favorable rating, simply put, has not really moved all that much compared to where it was a year ago. Trump is basically doing what the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president on record. Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah, CNN. That's on CNN. Okay, that wasn't Conservative Cat saying that over half of the voters disagree with her. The math isn't adding up here. She says that Donald Trump doesn't deliver on his promises. Again, she's got no real arguments. She deflected to COVID. She said that COVID was the reason why there weren't proper safeguards put in place when all of these programs were developed during the pandemic. And then she slandered the president with, insults, xenophobia, Islamophobia, every overplayed insult known to man. But again, really, what else is new? This is Ilhan Omar. This is who she is. I wanted to get to that before I got to the rest of the show today. Welcome. This is the Conservative Cat Show. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Visit patriotpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of premium pre-workout today. Using the promo code Conservative Cat at checkout. This has 3,000 milligrams of L-citrulline, 2,500 milligrams of creatine, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. We pair it with a black pepper extract, that caffeine, so it lasts longer. It's a great product, great price when you use the promo code Conservative Cat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Conservative Cat Show, where the truth has claws, liberty has 9 lives, and government wastes gets batted around like a yarn ball in a room full of caffeinated kittens. So, yeah, we're going to talk about government waste today. We're taking a hard look at the U.S. Postal Service, that independent federal establishment that claims that it doesn't take any tax dollars, and they simultaneously cash checks that are big enough to make a Ukrainian oligarch blush. I think in total we've sent Ukraine like $200 billion, something crazy like that. And we cut the U.S. Postal Service a check for $120 billion, I think in 2022. It was multiple payments to the U.S. Postal Service via tax dollars, like our tax dollars, going to the U.S. Postal Service to kind of bail them out because they have been falling behind on their pension obligations, okay? So they'll say like, oh, our day-to-day operations aren't taxpayer funded, okay, but like the rest of it is, and if we're funding the rest of it, then like, of course you can pay your day-to-day operations, I guess. So yeah, no other company, private sector company gets $120 billion just dropped into their lap to serve their retirees. Okay, so you are not independent. You are not taking taxpayer dollars. So grab your coffee, grab your Bibles, because we are diving into the Biden-backed electric fleet rollout. So what the USPS wants to do is they want to change all of their mail delivery service cars or vans or whatever to electric. Okay, so Biden did this under the Inflation Reduction Act. I'd imagine that this is going to stop under President Donald Trump, but billions in Inflation Reduction Act were allocated via subsidies to the U.S. Postal Service to do this electric fleet transition, okay, to transition their vehicles to electric trucks. Okay, so a new fleet of battery-powered mail trucks with taxpayer dollars. That's what they're going to buy, I guess. We'll see. But, what really pisses me off about all of it is we're not using your tax dollars. It's plastered all over their freaking website. If you go to the USPS website, they're constantly saying, we're not using your tax dollars. God. All right, so let's get into this. USPS, they begin installing EV chargers as the electric fleet rollout accelerates. Okay, so in Bloomington, Illinois, and the reason why I bring this story up is this was pointed out to me by a listener. One of you, a viewer, good morning, appreciate it. Subscribe while you're here. Yes, our beloved Central Illinois, home of cornfields, college students, and enough government overreach to make Springfield jealous. They have shiny Bloomington. It's on East Empire. It's a East Empire Street facility. They've got EV chargers, and somebody was sending me pictures, and I was like, I'll look into it. Maybe they're getting some, maybe it's just at that facility. No, this is like a nationwide rollout of electric vehicles for the USPS, and this was all done under the Biden administration via the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, what's fascinating here is they're not anticipating trucks arriving to that facility anytime soon. There's no routes dedicated. There's no trucks. They don't have trucks there with operational capabilities. They just got the chargers. Okay. And I can't help but think of this scenario. Think of it this way. It's kind of like the government equivalent to going out and buying a crib for a baby when you haven't even gone on a date with somebody. Okay. So I don't know why they're buying the chargers when there's no when are the trucks coming? Oh, we don't know. So why are you buying the chargers? And why are you setting up the chargers? There's no date of when you get the trucks. You're just setting up the chargers. Okay, whatever. So the USPS says they receive no tax dollars for day-to-day operations, which is absolutely adorable. It's kind of like a kid when they say, I didn't eat the cookies, and then they're in a pile of crumbs, and they're standing in a pile of crumbs. I didn't eat the cookies. I don't receive tax dollars on a day-to-day basis for day-to-day operations, but we did get a check for like $120 billion to bail us out because we weren't paying our retirees via our pension system because we fell miserably. You press them, and then they say, okay, fine. Yeah, we receive taxpayer dollars, but only for specific initiatives, only for the electric fleet rollout, for fleet electrification. That's it. Oh, that's it. Okay, that's it. Wait, how much are you getting? Oh, $3 billion the USPS has gotten from the Inflation Reduction Act for the electrification of their fleet. But it's going to cost even more than that. Than the $3 billion. Okay, so apparently the USPS, they've got the money, which I doubt. Most likely they won't have the money for this actual rollout of the electrification of their fleet, and they're going to come back and they're going to be like, taxpayer, please more, because it's actually going to cost probably about $9 billion. It's going to cost even more than that, but it's going to cost $9 billion to electrify their fleet. Okay, so the Inflation Reduction Act, you guys know, spent so much money, it made inflation worse. I always give you this example. They gave people $4,500 in some sort of like tax credit to go purchase electric vehicles. Okay, subsequently, Ford raised the cost of their electric vehicles by, drumroll please, $4,500. So the Inflation Reduction Act was BS. They spent so much money and inflated costs. It's ironically named the Inflation Reduction Act. So the USPS officials, they have the audacity to come out and say, like, oh, it's only a third. Like, it's $9 billion overall needed for the first batch of trucks to change over and electrify our fleet. So it's going to cost even more than the $9 billion. And they say, well, we only got the inflation reduction cash, and that only covers about a third. So, oh, that's comforting. You mean the taxpayer is probably going to need to give you more money? Because, like I said, the USPS not exactly financially, what's the word, responsible. They had $120 pension liability, and we've bailed them out a ton of times. The taxpayers bailed out the USPS a ton of times in recent years. So I highly doubt that they've got the $6 billion sitting around in order to really roll out these electric trucks. So the $3 billion, here's what I think is going on. The $3 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act quite literally covers the cost of the EV chargers, which is they've begun to roll out. Okay. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, we've already installed all the EV chargers at the various locations, facilities, one being Bloomington, East Empire. We've already installed it. We can't go back now. Give us the rest of the money, Trump administration, Republican-controlled Congress, give us the rest of the money to roll out completely at least this first batch of electric trucks, the extra $6 billion that we need. That's what I think is going to wind up happening. And they are going to be in for like one hell of a treat, I think, because this Congress, I don't think they're going to do it. That is not an America. Electric vehicles, rolling out electric vehicles for USPS, it doesn't make any sense. And I'll get to that here in just a second because they serve rural communities largely. It makes no sense. So I don't think that they're going to have a great time getting that money from Congress. I think that they're going to be met with some pushback from a Republican-controlled Congress. Anyway, it's kind of like telling your landlord, I pay my own bills except the rent. They had the nerve to say, oh, they're only paying like $3 billion. Okay, the taxpayers, but we're going to pay the $6 billion, but they're really not. Like, I know they're not. They're going to be asking Congress for that money. The USPS, and I wouldn't even be all that pissed about this if they weren't constantly saying we don't take taxpayer money. That's just an outright lie. $120 billion in the course of, I think it was a few years. And they say, oh, we pay our own bills. But, the taxpayer pays our rent. Okay, so here's the truth, folks. The USPS, they have spent decades proving that when the government does something, it costs 4 times more. It works half as well. And it shows up 2 days late and broken. Okay, so Amazon, they do it better. FedEx does it better. I'm sorry. This has got to be privatized. And I think that's a goal of President Donald Trump's, to privatize the USPS completely. It needs to be done now. Because we can't afford another $120 billion bailout. We can't afford $6 billion for their damn electric fleet rollout. If it's meant to die, it will die. Okay. The USPS, the FedEx, Amazon, They all innovate and electrify, and they take their profits and then they electrify, and they well, not UP or USPS. I said UPS. Sorry, UPS, FedEx, Amazon. They all do this, and they deliver packages faster, and they deliver those packages faster than it takes the government to hold a meeting about holding a committee meeting. Okay, so it's just more efficient, and that is why they can electrify and innovate. And I really don't give a damn. Do I think that it's the best use of their money? Absolutely not. They're electric vehicles. Sorry, they blow up. I don't know what to say. And they shut down in the cold, and I don't think it's the best use of your dollars. Like, why convert to electricity? I don't know. But I don't work at Amazon. I'm not a top exec at Amazon, and I'm not a top exec at FedEx. And if they want to electrify, if they want to innovate, all the more power to them, whatever. And I think that this is what the government does. And I tell you that they're full of a bunch of nerds in the government, people who couldn't make it in the private sector. They went into the public sector, and they are pissed that they aren't as good as those in the private sector, or they're not making a product or providing a service that is in demand and that is wanted by people. They feel unwanted. They're losers in the public sector. And I think what happens truly here is people in the public sector say, oh, look, UPS is doing it. Amazon, the EV vans, Rivian, they're doing it. We ought to do that. Okay, but here's the secret sauce. Private companies use their own money, and they innovate because the market demands it, not because Congress forces it. And they pass, what was it? The Inflation Reduction Act was like 700 pages. None of the Congress members probably even read the damn thing. And they passed this exorbitant amount of money. It was $3 billion for just the USPS to roll out a little bit of their first electrification, the first round of electrifying their fleet. So USPS, also, we can't forget this element here. They are upgrading their facilities with these EV chargers, and they don't even know if they're going to get the cars. Okay. Like, they don't even have the money. They don't have the routes. They don't. So they're installing these electric vehicle chargers. They've got zero electric trucks on the lot, and I don't think they're coming anytime soon. I'm sorry, but this is government cosplay, and really what they're trying to do is install these chargers so that way they are saying, well, it's too late now. We've got to have the money for the full $9 billion for this first rollout of electric vehicles. Then they'll come back and they'll say, well, maintenance of these electric vehicles costed a little bit more than we anticipated. Some of them broke down in the cold. Some of them broke down when we were delivering to rural areas. We're going to need a little bit more than the $9 billion. And then we're going to need a little bit more for the second rollout of the electric fleet. So it's going to be a sinkhole. We're never going to get out of it as taxpayers. So the Biden administration, and it gets deeper and crazier. They love to talk about green energy. They had talked about green energy, union jobs, yada, 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 yada. So naturally, the USPS is dropping billions on Oshkosh Defense. This is a union-friendly contractor. So Oshkosh, they're not buying like Rivian. Rivian is not, from what I understand, unionized. Okay. Their workers are not unionized. Here's what goes on. The Oshkosh Defense, which is where they're buying these electric vehicles from, they're unionized. And what do we know about unions? Unions, Democrats, they love to get together. Okay. So what this was under the Biden administration, this was, hey, USPS, we're going to give you $3 billion. Roll out your electric fleet. That might be enough for like some EV chargers or whatever. We're going to give you $3 billion. You're going to take that $3 billion. You're going to give it to the Oshkosh Defense. Oshkosh Defense, their union, is going to turn around and thank us for that $3 billion. Okay. The union, the people who make the electric vehicles, the batteries, the chargers, those people, they're going to thank us in the form of a campaign donation to Democrats, because Democrats, we were the ones who secured this $3 billion for them in the Inflation Reduction Act. Do you see what's going on here? Okay. So that's why this is all BS. Amazon, and I don't know. I don't know how Rivians actually are, the quality, the price, or the engineering of those vehicles. But a lot of the time, private sector, if they're going to innovate, electrify their fleets, they're not going to do it based off union politics, because it's their money. It's eating into their profits and what they pay themselves at the end of the day to innovate. So it's not about union politics, largely. So that's what this was. It was a game. It was a payout to the unions, and then the unions turn around and pay the Democrats. That's what this was. So what are they getting, the USPS, or what do they want to get in this first rollout? Like I said, it's just like one rollout costs $9 billion. So I don't know how many rollouts that they're anticipating, but maybe like 3 rounds. It's a lot of money. $27 billion. Not to mention the maintenance, the breaking down, the unexpected cost of this, but they want 51,500 vehicles from Oshkosh. They want 35,000 battery models. They want 9,250 Ford e-Transits. And yeah, there's going to be thousands of more vehicles that they want to electrify their fleet. This is just the starting. Okay, so largely it all comes from Oshkosh, which was this, payout, essentially taxpayer dollars to unions, and then the unions turn around and funnel money back into the campaign coffers. Okay, so not a single truck is assigned to the Bloomington facility. Not one single truck is assigned, which it raises the obvious question: why the hell are we installing these chargers? Doesn't make any sense. Are the trucks going to arrive sometime between now and the second coming of Jesus Christ? We don't know. There's no plan. Okay, this is government planning at its finest, folks. They have no plan. And like I said, they're not thinking about all the stuff under the rug either. I mean, there's grid upgrades. How are we, what kind of effect is this going to have on our grid? The maintenance, the training. You've got to train people how to drive these electric vehicles now. That's going to cost money. You've got nationwide charging infrastructure, battery disposal, route inefficiency in cold climates. Have you ever tried to start up an electric vehicle in 0-degree weather? Okay, doesn't quite work. Okay, and USPS, they are supposed to be serving rural communities largely. And, rural communities, that's where the EV range kind of goes to die. You only got so much charge. Okay, so the real cost is not $9 billion. Okay, it's much higher than that for the first rollout. And then they're going to ask for more for the second rollout of the electric trucks. So the moment the USPS runs short of funds, they're going to go back to Congress. They're going to beg Congress, please, pretty please, give us money. And Congress probably will. I mean, I think that they'll get pushback with a Republican-held Congress. The money. But, if we don't do well in the midterms, Congress might just swoop in, patch the hole for them with more taxpayer money, and they'll call it they'll do it quietly, and they'll say it's a non-operational subsidy. We're just subsidizing them a little bit. Okay, it's kind of like being robbed by somebody, and they claim that they're not robbing you because they are only taking your cash, not your credit cards. It's kind of like that. Oh, well, it's they're covering their day-to-day operations. We're just going to give them a non-operational subsidy to kind of get them to innovate a little bit, the USPS, because they don't have the funds to innovate themselves. It's just BS. All right, stewardship matters, accountability matters, honesty matters. Whether you're a church, a business, a government agency, Scripture lays out the expectation. Okay. Be faithful with what you are entrusted with. The USPS is entrusted with one simple mission: deliver the freaking mail. We're not asking you to innovate. We're not asking you to reinvent the American energy grid, to be this climate change showcase. We're not asking for any of that. Okay, when government loses sight of their purpose, that is when we pay the price. Your purpose is not to buy vehicles from union contract Oshkosh Defense. Your purpose is not to be these defenders of climate change or whatever the hell, okay? Keep sight of your mission, okay? You are entrusted with a simple mission, and that is to deliver the freaking mail and try not to break the taxpayer's piggy bank, okay? If the USPS wants to electrify their fleet, do it with your money. Do it with the stamps that you collect from me. Do it with the packages that I buy from, the boxes. Do it efficiently. And do it after you prove that the private sector can't do it better. Oh, wait, it does do it better. And you can't do it better. So, yeah, you can't take billions in subsidies and insist that you're independent. And you can't ask the American people to trust you while driving the country deeper into debt so you can virtue signal. That's really what this is. So it's virtue signaling. Look, we electrified our fleet. Does it even really help what you do? You're delivering to rural communities in the cold. I mean, is this really going to benefit anybody? No. I think Bloomington deserves better. America deserves better. Taxpayers definitely deserve better. So that's the story here, folks. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Good morning, chat. I appreciate it. Good morning. I like this one. Once the Muslims get control of the city council, American norms are destroyed. Yeah, this actually happened. In Minnesota, there were people who attended a local city council meeting, and they were really upset about the 5:30 a.m. calls to prayer, and they called for a stop to that. Some sort of sound ordinances, and the council didn't do anything for the constituency there. Okay, and when Donald Trump says these people are destroying our country, that's what he's talking about. They're destroying our values. 5:30 in the morning, you're just trying to get a wink of sleep before you got to wake up in the morning and pay for all these Somalians to be here and to take money from our food assistance programs for hungry American children. They're going to take it and they're going to fraud the American taxpayer and pay for their lavish lifestyles or send it back home to these terrorist organizations who wind up killing us. So why support people who say they want us dead? I don't know. So appreciate the comments from Bob, from those of you on Rumble. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Big news in Washington, D.C. Broke yesterday, Thursday. The arrest of a suspect in the Washington, D.C. pipe bomb case, the infamous pipe bomb case. It's gone unsolved for 4 years. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Janine, she appeared on Laura Ingram's Fox News show, and she talked about what we know about the suspect, and she talked largely about Joe Biden's utter failures. The Biden administration's limp efforts to find out who did this, who planted that J6 pipe bomb. So Ingram, she noted that the public had almost given up on ever knowing the answer. Judge Janine, she understood or understands our frustration here. And she says, quote, well, Americans had a right to feel like this case was never going to be solved because it was clear that the Biden administration did not make it a priority. Within a couple of months of finding these pipe bombs, they actually pulled agents off of the case. So the case went cold. President Donald Trump came in and he said, nope, we're going to reinvigorate this. And I'm going to get Kash Patel. I'm going to get Dan Bongino, and they are going to reanalyze the evidence and look over everything and find the guy. So I don't even really know what to say about this story other than this is exhausting because this guy could have been found under the Biden administration and wasn't. His name is Brian Cole Jr., 30 years old, apparently a white man, okay, from the DC suburbs, and he was charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with the malicious destruction by means of explosion. So that's what he was charged with. Jake Tapper described him as a white male, but he is a very non-white male. Okay, the J6 bomber is not a white guy. He is brown. So here's Jake Tapper, of course, lying and saying that it was a white guy. Hold on. Let me pull this up for you. Jake Tapper on CNN.
The FBI finally announced that they had arrested a suspect accused of planting pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning. Attorney General Pam Bondi gave very few details about the suspect this morning, but said this cold case has been solved. The FBI fined.
Okay, so that's Jake Tapper. That's Brian Cole. Not a white guy. 30-year-old black guy. Judge Janine, she described the incredible effort by the Bureau to find this guy and to nail it all down and figure it out. So they knew they were close, she revealed on the Laura Ingraham show, when they were able to get his cell phone and show that his cell phone was in the area that night. Okay, that fateful night, January 5th, 2021, when he had placed the bombs outside the DNC and the RNC. Okay, so the U.S. Attorney, Judge Janine, she went into detail and talked about the suspect and who he is. And what's kind of chilling is that this guy is not some weirdo. He's not some wide-eyed freak on Reddit. Okay, and it's disturbing how normal this guy was. Is. And he, could have been anybody's neighbor, and nobody would have had a clue that he was planning on blowing up hundreds of people outside the DNC and the RNC. And this guy, had a very low profile. He lived with his mom. He does very little. He goes to work for a few hours a day. He lives with his mom and his family. And Judge Janine says, we surveilled him. What I can tell you is that he always wears his headphones. He would take out his dogs, go to the 7-Eleven. He's very low-key, low profile. His closest friends are his family. He lives with his mom. He would go to work for a few hours, and he was just a low-key guy. And that's something I did not expect. So I want to share with you Judge Janine and what she had said. Here it is. About the suspect on the Ingram angle. Here we go.
Virginia high school graduate.
Right.
I guess did not, as far as we know, didn't go to college. But do we know anything else about his social media habits or his political affiliation? Anything?
Look, what I can tell you is that he was always wearing his headphones. He would take his dog out. He'd go to the 7-Eleven. He was very, as you say, low key, low profile. There wasn't a lot going on. His closest friends are his family. He lives with his mom and his sisters. He would go to work for a few hours a day. His father had a bail bondsman company. And he was just a very low-key person that you would never expect.
Friends?
Not a lot of social media. No, not a lot. No,
Any priors or prior
no
arrests?
priors. No.
So I mean, if I see this, I think someone who lived a lot online, maybe didn't have a big social circle.
You're right. You're right. He's that quiet individual that you would never imagine could put a pipe bomb, put it together. And by the way, when we
learn that on the internet, by the way, you don't learn that usually in a book.
But when the FBI went in this morning, they found a lot of other products and pieces for pipe bombs.
Like what?
Other pipes, other wires, other timers. He was into this, very much into this.
Okay. So Cole Jr., Brian Cole Jr. did not engage frequently on social media, as you heard there. He had no priors. He was just Mr. Invisible, I guess. And he was a quiet individual that you wouldn't have known could plant a pipe bomb, put it together. And the FBI went into his house. They found more pipe bombs, other pipe bombs like wires and timers, as you heard from Judge Janine. He was into this. That's what Judge Janine said. And this is just a strange case. I'm thankful that this quiet guy didn't do any more damage or injure anyone. Judge Janine said that she is confident justice will be done. She said that the case is solid. It's as solid as it gets. So that's the update there. I do want to talk a little bit more about this story. One more. Politicians, they like to get themselves and twist themselves into pretzels, and I'm always here for it when they twist themselves into a pretzel. Now, this Democrat, accidentally torpedoed his own party when it came to the J6 pipe bomb thing. Okay, and he ended up proving the exact point of Republicans and the exact point Republicans have been making about this thing for years, and it was pure chef's kiss. Love it when Democrats twist themselves into pretzels and prove the Republicans right. Prove the exact point that we make. And I bring you Senator Mark Warner. Now, Senator Mark Warner has been in the news as of recently. He has been kind of chiming in when it comes to the seditious six. The seditious six, their chorus of saying, well, Trump is war crimes because he's bombing and striking these Venezuelan drug boats, which he's totally in the realm of doing. Okay, if it was up to the Democrat Party, Donald Trump and the administration wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom without some sort of judge's permission. Okay, they wouldn't even be able to use the toilets in the White House if it was up to the Democrats. Okay, we have to have executive power. Okay, and he doesn't have to go through Congress to issue strikes. He's already kind of, via executive order, deemed TDA a threat to America, which is why he can carry out these strikes. I've explained this. But Mark Warner here, he sort of has echoed the seditious six claims that Donald Trump is doing something illegal there with the Venezuelan drug boats. He even hinted, Warner, the Democrat from Virginia, Mark Warner, hinted that he was in favor of a military coup of sorts against President Donald Trump. He implied that, which, what? You're calling for the military to usurp our elected leader, President Donald Trump. So the context of his remarks kind of center around, like I said, the media and Democrat-driven drug boat controversy. The Democrats are making it controversial. The media is making it controversial. Most people, if you tell them, hey, we're blowing up drug dealers, most people would be like, good. Yeah, sounds fine to me. Um, but Warner, who is the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, stated in response to the drug boat controversy and stated this, he says, quote, I think in many ways the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth. So he didn't elaborate there in this statement what he meant by that. I'll tell you what I think he meant and what it looks like. To me, it sounds like he's in favor of a military coup of sorts coming up against the president of the United States. What? He didn't elaborate on what the how part of saving us would be, how the military is going to save us from President Donald Trump and what that might entail. But, you know, you can fill in the blanks. Warner yesterday was interviewed about the news here regarding the J6 bomb, okay, announced by the DOJ. They said, hey, we've made an arrest. We've got the suspect. An arrest has been made in the J6 bomb case. Warner said, that's great news. But then he stated, I don't know why Republicans are taking a victory lap. He wondered out loud. And he said it could have been solved sooner had the Trump administration not allegedly diverted federal resources to combat illegal immigration. So he goes, quote, I got to tell you, he's in the interview. It kind of makes me looking at this crowd doing a victory lap, the Republicans doing a victory lap, when all the senior FBI officials across all these key divisions have been fired for political purposes, when in some field offices, up to 45% of FBI officers who are doing things to counter things like espionage and cyber have been assigned to immigration cases instead. It's a little rich that they're saying they make America safer. How much earlier could we have caught the guy if resources hadn't been diverted to things like immigration? So what he's saying here is, you know, they came in and they kind of gutted the FBI. They got some of these senior officials, these corrupt people in the FBI, you know, the same FBI that went after Catholics and parents at school board meetings. They got rid of some of those officials, the Trump administration, Kash Patel, people that we can't trust. Okay. And they got rid of some of those officials in these divisions in some field offices. And then he was saying, like, oh, well, a lot of these FBI officers, the ones that are left that weren't fired by the Trump administration, a lot of them were doing things like counter espionage, cyber, but they were reassigned to immigration. I would make the argument that, yeah, we should reassign them to immigration because there were, what was it? I don't know. Under Joe Biden, I think it was like 10 million. And if Kamala Harris had gotten in, it was an estimated 15 million more. Like, that is priority number one, deporting, mass deportations. So far, up to this point from January, since Donald Trump took office to now, I think we're about 3 million, but I think we've got like 10 million. Okay, so we've got 7 million more people to deport. So they've got to make some more headway on this, the Trump administration, than they are currently. And in order to do that, in order to really make headway on this, they've got to reassign FBI members. Okay, and this is priority number one, because this demographic change, this cultural change in our country, that is, I think, the biggest threat and the biggest issue that we should care about as Americans, because our laws are downstream of culture. If our culture changes, our laws change. And I don't know about you, but I prefer not living in a place where cousin marriages are a thing. Okay, like they are in Somalia. So, yeah, this guy goes on and on about, we could have caught this guy sooner. I don't know why they're taking a victory lap. let's take a listen to Senator Mark Warner. Here we go.
But I got to tell you, it kind of makes me, looking at this crowd doing a victory lap, when all the senior FBI officials across all key divisions have been fired for political purposes, when in some field offices up to 45% of the FBI officers who are doing things like counter-espionage and cyber have been assigned to do immigration cases. It's a little rich that they're saying America's safer. How much earlier could we have caught this guy if resources hadn't been diverted? And I hope it would also remind folks that on January 6th, I was here at the Capitol on January 6th. It was an ugly, awful day. And this administration and this president basically pardoned all the perpetrators. You know, it's that kind of picking and choosing of facts from this crowd that makes me a little bit crazy. Now to the question of, but I got to tell you, it kind of makes me.
Okay. So, Republican Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Congressional District 2, he was, like many, wondering if Warner had stopped to consider the fact that the Biden-Harris administration had 4 years to investigate the pipe bomber. Okay. Assuming it was ever even done. I don't know if they even did an investigation. Judge Janine, she had said that they had pulled agents off of the case. So, I mean, was an investigation even done prior to Donald Trump taking office? Probably not. Taking office his second term. Here is what Tim Burchett said. He goes, quote, "Your Democrat-controlled feds had it for 4 years. FBI Director Kash Patel and Dan Bongino had it for 9 months and they solved it." And enough said there, right? Maybe the investigation that allegedly occurred under Joe Biden's watch would have been more fruitful had they not politically diverted DOJ, FBI resources and preoccupied them with prosecuting people like Mark Huck, the pro-lifer. They prosecuted, busted down doors of pro-lifers, people who were praying outside of abortion clinics. You know, they targeted parents who were concerned about mask mandates and concerned about sex education at school board meetings. They busted down the doors of concerned parents who showed up at those meetings. Perhaps their investigation, if there ever was one, perhaps it would have been more fruitful and they would have been able to catch the guy had they not diverted their resources towards, I don't know, sending feds into Latin Catholic Mass to keep an eye on them. So Warner here, what he does, Mark Warner, the Democrat, he accidentally sort of admits that the Biden investigation into the case was a miserable failure. And it just goes to show you that Dan Bongino, the point that he makes here, it's that it was a miserable, utter failure from the Biden administration. And he noted this, Dan Bongino, in a press conference when he had announced the arrest. And he said, this is what happens when you have a president who prioritizes law and order and making sure we catch the bad guys and making sure that that's a priority. Here's what Dan Bongino says. He says, folks, this is what it looks like when you work for a president who tells you to get the bad guys and to stop focusing on extraneous things not related to law enforcement. This is what happens. So the reason why, by the way, the Trump administration got rid of a lot of these FBI officials, because a lot of them were being political and sending their field agents into places like Catholic Mass to watch the Catholics and to make sure that they weren't being extreme, or to send field agents into TPUSA to try to, or to label TPUSA or Republican Party, the RNC, as radical domestic terrorist. Okay. So let's take a listen to Dan, what he had to say at the press conference. Here we go.
Thank you all for being here for this critical investigation we've been working on for a very long time. We deeply appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words, Attorney General and Director. I appreciate it. Folks, this is what it's like when you work for a president who tells you to go get the bad guys and stop focusing on other extraneous things not related to law enforcement. This is what happens. We had a great team. I know it's said a lot in this business. It was a team effort. It becomes cliche, but cliches are useful for a reason because they matter. And this was a team effort. The director and the attorney general emphasized that it was not a new public tip this was our internal work at the FBI. Thank you all for being here for this critical investigation we've been working on for a very long time. We deeply appreciate it.
Okay. So that's Dan Bongino. Enough said there. Enough said. I do want to kind of play something here funny and end the show. I like doing this on Fridays, finding some silly stories for you guys. Raccoon got drunk at an ABC liquor store in Ashland, Virginia, and passed out in the bathroom. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. It's kind of funny. So I'm going to share this clip with you. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Okay, let's play the clip and then I'll talk about the story. Here we go.
It happened Saturday in Ashland, and according to social media posts by Hanover County Animal Protection and Shelter, a raccoon broke into the store the night of Black Friday and ransacked several shelves. They have masks, don't they? The animal became intoxicated, then passed out in the bathroom. The sleeping raccoon was discovered Saturday morning.
Head right near the toilet. We've all been there probably at some point in our lives, right?
A little too much.
An officer brought the masked bandit back to the county animal shelter to recover. So yes, that's a lot of liqueur for a little raccoon there. The raccoon slept it off for a few hours and showed no signs of injury. Bounced back. Officers released the raccoon back into the wild.
It happened Saturday in Ashland, and according to social media posts,
that's just a good story. Okay, clearly the justice system is not justicing when they release masked bandits like that. They released him back into the wild. How could they? Okay, the liquor store in Virginia, they found this raccoon passed out in the bathroom, on the bathroom floor. And he was, suspected of ransacking the place, and he was very heavy-handed with his paws, according to ABC News. The Hanover County Animal Protection and Shelter, they found the masked bandit collapsed on the bathroom floor, and the furry little burglar had ransacked the shelves and drank multiple types of alcohol. In a social media post, officials say they took the very intoxicated raccoon back to the shelter. He sobered up, and then they released him back into the wild. Zero accountability. Okay, zero. What makes them think that this raccoon is not going to pull another stunt like this? And, they provided zero repercussions for his behavior. Absolutely incredible, but yet predictable in these times. I'd imagine there's the Safety Act or the no cash bail. They just released him after a few hours of sleep and zero signs of injury other than a hangover from his poor life choices. He was safely released back into the wild, hopefully having learned that breaking and entering is not the answer. The Facebook post read, according to data, statistics indicate that individuals with prior DUI convictions are more likely to reoffend than those without such a record. So the chances that this little raccoon, he got arrested, he was not arrested behind the wheel. He didn't have he wasn't driving. But I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time that he offends. And it's deeply important that we hold individuals accountable and we hold them accountable for such crimes. I don't understand why they released him. So it's great to know that nobody was harmed, including the raccoon. But it's time officials take these sorts of things seriously and these sorts of crimes seriously. Enough is enough. While they would like to give the suspect the benefit of the doubt in this case, and they hope a stern finger pointing and saying, hey, don't do this again. They think that that's going to prevent him from making a bad life choice again. I'm not so optimistic. I look at the statistics, I look at the crime. I think that they got to be more tough on crime here. The officials should have been more tough on crime. They should have had a tough on crime attitude. And if they don't correct this, and if they don't adjust their attitude to be more tough on crime, I think things like this are going to keep happening. So that's just my 2 cents. What do you think? Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Smash that like button. He's a raccoon of color, so he was freed. Too much moonshine. His fingerprints were all over the place. Yeah, I don't know how they didn't get a conviction or make an arrest. I mean, there's no way his little fingerprints weren't all over those bottles. They could have easily tied him to that crime of breaking in, drinking all the alcohol, publicly intoxicated. I mean, the list goes on of what they could have charged Little Raccoon with, but they didn't. They just let him out. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Subscribe to the channel. Tell one person about Conservative Cat today. And we'll be back again Monday morning, bright and early.